Okay, we're going to shift gears now and we're going to talk about unstructured data and sentiments. And we did a survey for people coming to the conference and we asked you about analytics, and most people don't know what sentiment means, but I'm going to introduce Anthony Volpe. You can come up on the stage. Anthony works for Lenovo, and I have a Lenovo computer, thank you very much. And he has the title of Chief Corporate Analytics Officer. So why don't you start and tell the group what that title means?
Yeah, fundamentally, like any large multinational, we do have smart analytics people all around the company, at least analytically inclined people. In fact, the supply chain is a great example where we have very strong analytics type people with good supply chain acumen. They don't report into me, but we do have centralized analytics as well, and that's really what I'm responsible for.
So when I was looking for speakers, I wanted somebody to be able to talk about sentiment, social text mining, and what it meant for the supply chain. And I only know of 7 case studies. So people will talk about, well, we need to mine all this Facebook, Twitter data and bring it into the supply chain. And I'm like, I'm with you, I agree, but how? It doesn't fit in our conventional processes and technologies. So Anthony's going to tell us about his journey at Lenovo, and then we're going to have a Q&A. So tell him all about it.
Okay, thanks, Laura. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. It is my first year here, which probably accounts for the fact that, one, I'm at 4 o'clock. After John and his very cool robots, and after Cheryl and Kevin in their very inspiring, groovy green story, tough acts to follow, but I'm thrilled to be here. This won't be nearly as inspirational and certainly not as strategic, just to be frank. What this will be, though, is very tactical. And I think at least the supply chain people I know, and I sort of count myself among those, we're tactical people, right? We focus on execution, getting things done, right? Getting raw materials in, delivering to customers. We're a tactical group. Okay, so we're probably going to get back to a little bit of that here. And we're going to do that in the context of how we at Lenovo have really tried to do things to become more customer-centric. And in particular, we'll focus on our use of unstructured data and sentiment analysis applied to that unstructured data and what it's meant for our entire value chain. Okay, not just logistics, not just procurement, but across the entire value chain. I hope to have a very robust discussion at the end of this, so hopefully you'll have a lot of good questions. Who has a ThinkPad? Anyone have a ThinkPad? Right, okay. A lot of us have ThinkPads. We've had ThinkPads kind of since ThinkPads were issued to workers en masse. And it turns out that Lenovo, which as many of you know, we picked up the IBM ThinkPad business. That's fundamentally a big part of who we are. And when you sell ThinkPads to all of you, your companies, you are not consumer-centric per se. Right? You can talk about being consumer-centric. You could say you're consumer-centric, but it's B2B, it's relationship. Okay? What consumer-oriented companies, what's a very consumer-oriented company? Let's say Nordstrom. Do they have a pipeline? Does the Nordstrom head of merchandising ever ask about a pipeline? No. We have pipelines. Right? So right off the bat, we can claim to be a consumer-centric organization, like many B2B companies would claim. They're trying. But it actually isn't very easy, is it? It's very hard. It turns out, though, in the last couple of years, Lenovo decided we mean it. We really are going to become a consumer-centric company. We have a line of personal computers, servers, but especially personal computers we'll focus on, made specifically for consumers. Right? We hired someone like Ashton. Right? Our old relationship customers don't care about Ashton, but we're hoping our consumers do. We have Moto Maker, think about customization of our phones. We're in the phone business, right? Even before Motorola, we were the 4th largest smartphone producer in the world. Most of that was in emerging markets. We lead the markets in places like Ukraine, Russia, Indonesia, Thailand, China, of course, we do very well in. Okay, we added Motorola to become more Western consumer focused, right? And so, again, the challenge, and I've been at Lenovo for only 2 years, almost to the date, but the challenge in the last 2 years is we mean it this time. And you, Anthony, leading analytics, you need to help us figure this out, right? And so analytics were viewed as a way to go down this path. I wish I had my picture that I often show, especially because I look better than John, maybe. But it's a picture of me in a bakery when I was very young, an Italian bakery in New York, right? With lots of choices behind me that looked delicious. And there I am, really chubby cheeks, looking completely overwhelmed at the decision I had to make, which was, which one of these things do I consume? Which one do I choose? What do I go do? And as an analytics champion at a place like Lenovo, where we want to be consumer focused now, and there's all kinds of great data, we often become overwhelmed at the possibilities. The problem's actually further exacerbated by the fact that we hear a lot of the consultants and the vendors, who are all very good, knowledgeable, and smart, telling us all the things we should be doing that we're not doing, right? And they not only tell us, they tell our bosses. And the bosses say things like, I remember the CEO, probably a week into my tenure at Lenovo, it was the first time I was meeting him, threw down the Harvard Business Review article on the table that said, big data and analytics. It was the cover story. Threw it on the table. Go do big data. Go do analytics. So right, that's tough. What do we do? How do we do this? And he says, oh, by the way, become more consumer-centric. Be more customer-focused. And it turns out now that we've realized this whole journey is about two very simple things. First, we have to start asking new questions that better reflect customer centricity. And second, we have to start measuring different outcomes. And together, if we do this, we'll start to change the core processes that really determine whether or not you're consumer focused. So let me give you an example. John mentioned during his talk, he showed the Dallas facility, or Fort Worth, whatever it is, the Moto factory. Again, we own Motorola now. It didn't work. What did that mean, it didn't work? He's right, it didn't work. But what does that mean? Through what lens did it not work? I promise you, the consumers loved it. It was truly groundbreaking. Nobody had ever customized a mobile device like this. Different materials on the back, beautiful leathers, bamboos, all kinds of things. Metallic trims that you can choose, custom engraving. Groundbreaking because who would be silly enough to put a supply chain together that can service that? So we say it didn't work and we took it out. And what does it mean it didn't work? Our customers loved it. Well, I would ask, what were we measuring? Right? We measured the same things we've always been measuring, especially in supply chain. We measure what? Cost per box, turns, on time in full, perfect order fulfillment, right? All these things financially, even profitability, short term, this quarter, how did we perform? That's what we measured, and by those KPIs, it didn't work. I would question if we had measured other things, and if we were able to measure other things, such as, wow, this earned us, right, 250,000 new customers with a lifetime value of X. Would that have changed our minds? We have to measure different outcomes, and we have to ask new questions. Don't just ask, Did we hit our perfect order fulfillment goals? Ask, was our customer happy with their fulfillment experience? Right? So this journey to customer centricity starts here. So I'm sure a lot of you, again, we're getting tactical here, a lot of you would recognize this type of project. What did we do? We said, well, we have a lot of high variability, long lead time components, and by the way, our DOI levels are around 12 days, and by the way, they're causing us a lot of stockouts, and we actually need to increase our DOI in order to achieve the service level that we need. And oh, by the way, boss, don't worry. We know you hate that. Shocking, right? The customer benefits. We know you hate that, but we'll pay for it because on the right side, we have lots of low variability, short lead time, highly predictable components where we can lower the safety stock dramatically. And the net of this project is a reduction in overall inventory and an increase in service level, right? We've done these projects. Do we agree? I mean, this was like World War II stuff, right? We're doing, a lot of us haven't done all of that we can do yet. That's why the vendors are still doing this stuff. And they're very good at it. We at Lenovo call these blue projects. What do I mean by a blue project? A blue project in analytics from my team or the teams we're working to support. Blue projects are those things that we've been doing for a while in the industry. We could look it up in OR textbooks, chapter 6, section 1. We focus on a decision. It has a clear and measurable value proposition. We're good at them. Our so-called data scientists love these. Right? Blue projects. They win when we compare them against other ambiguous projects. Why? Again, clear time to value. I could benchmark myself against other companies who have done this exact same project. Right? There's low risk. The data is structured and available. We call this a blue project. And guess what? Our CEO hates our blue projects. I would ask, how does the customer benefit? Now, we all recognize on the left side, well, higher service levels, that's a benefit to the customer. But what was the objective function, right? For all of us in that we know about objective functions. What were we doing? We were maximizing profitability or minimizing inventory. There's no customer in that objective function per se. The other reason our CEO hates these blue projects, and by the way, I'm not claiming they're not valuable. Right? I really think they are, and we still should be doing them. I'm not suggesting we stop. But the other reason he hates it is because he can't tell the board this. He can't tell the investor community this. Right? We're publicly traded. He doesn't want to say, well, we're going to take another couple $100 million out of the supply chain. What's the question everyone should ask? Haven't you done that already? What have you been doing the last 15 years? Is this sexy and cool and interesting? No. We want to do what we call green projects. Green projects are hard to choose. Green projects, we don't even know what they are, but green projects are huge growth types of projects. The value proposition is unknown, unclear, long time horizons, right? But the CEO would contend, you know what? Those aren't worth 100 million. They're worth billions potentially. And oh, by the way, not only are they just worth billions, they can allow us to stay in business in a more and more competitive global economy. We want to be a consumer brand. We have to act like a consumer brand. It requires green types of projects. So we'll talk about a green project or two in a minute. But I want to make sure we have this framework in context of blue and green, because we are challenging ourselves now to think about projects that have traditionally been blue and turn them into green, So that's one example I'm about to talk about. But the other one is brand spanking new green things that we can do. So here's an example of several supply chain logistics type projects that we've done over the last couple years. You don't need to read the fine print. You all do this for a living. Network optimization, right? Marrying the right sources of supply with the right modes of transportation. This is what we do in supply chain, right? We've all done these. Blue, 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 blue. So how is the customer directly benefiting from these? Well, we are more efficient, right? We love that word efficiency. Does efficiency equal value to a brand? Not necessarily. It will likely lead to a better short-term, this quarter financial outcome, but it has very little to do with our long-term survival, okay? And it certainly isn't necessarily going to help us grow the way we want. So one way that we're trying to get more customer-centric and take a blue project and turn it green is to do the following. So we had all the data together. We had all these models together. And all we decided to do was take advantage of some of the things we used to do well in blue projects. What do blue projects do well? They focus on one decision somebody's making, right? We have a procurement guy who buys components. If we focus on the decision of improving the how much do I buy decision, we think we could get a better outcome, right? We focus on a decision. We help a pricing analyst with the decision of make the right price. We've forgotten that fundamental when we talk about big data, haven't we? Go do big data. What decision am I focused on? Right? Go do customer-centric analytics. What decision am I focusing on? So if we take what we learned from blue and we say, you know what, we're going to focus on one decision and we're going to put analytics in the hands of a decision maker in a way that the decision maker can use each and every day. We call it the toothbrush. The decision maker picks up the toothbrush every day. It does its job. The decision maker never thinks about it and never would imagine starting the day without the toothbrush. What's the toothbrush that we decide to build here? From that same data for network optimization and logistics type things, we said, let's make a mobile app. Why a mobile app? Because the decision maker that we want to impact is an account executive working with your procurement people. Your procurement people are going to buy some servers from Lenovo. Okay, they're one of our customers. Let's be customer-centric. Instead of us telling them that they're going to leverage our very efficient supply chain, get it at a cost of $600 on September 30th. That's the old way, efficient. Our new way was, wow, we can actually put in the hands of the account executive an analytic that could give them the choices to provide to the customer on the spot. Wow, I know you think you really want this on September 30th. And we could do that for you, but it'll cost this. On the other hand, if we leverage a different source of supply, mode of transportation combination, and you could wait 3 days longer, the price goes down. If you're willing to wait on part of the order for 6 more weeks, the price on that goes down further. So what was efficient network optimization modeling transformed itself into customer choice model. That is, here you go, customer, what do you want? Right? This is a change in mindset. This was a blue project, fundamental efficiency, that we transformed into something much more customer-centric. This is scrappy kind of work. I love that word, by the way. Andrea, I think, said it, right? This is scrappy. This isn't super, super innovative. We just kind of transposed this a bit, and we came up with something very customer-centric. This is a good success story, right? So the first way we tried to achieve the goal of do customer-centric analytics, or we need to be more customer-centric, is we transform blue projects. And we're working on this today. The other way that we are trying to become more customer-centric and also work on that goal to do big data, and this is, I think, what Laura especially wanted me to talk about, is how do we listen to our customer more? And what does that mean? And I think it's been important to establish this framework of blue and green to tell this story, because in fact, thinking about the little boy in the donut store with too many choices, we do become overwhelmed. 7 people, you say, have success here? Why? We're paralyzed. We really are. We're having trouble valuing the opportunity. We're having trouble figuring out what to do. We do some text mining and we look at the answers and we're not sure how useful they are, right? But if we start with a decision, the way we did in that other project, the way we've done for decades in blue type projects, we start with the decision, we understand the decision maker, and we have people in the organization who aren't data scientists that only know how to model mathematically or statistically speaking, but people who understand the business, understand the processes and the operations. And we could embed a decision right at the right point through the correct, what we call delivery mechanism. The mobile app was one delivery mechanism, right? Then we can start to use big data. So what we did, and our journey started when we said, look, there's a lot of people out there talking from all over the world, right? This voice of customer data is coming to us through many channels. What are they? Social media. People want to share with their friends and family. I bought a new yoga tablet today. I love it. It's so light. Information's coming to us through e-commerce sites. You bought it on Amazon, you write a review. What's the review say? Many things. We could decide plus or minus, right? Sentiment. They like us or not. I'm not sure yet how that impacts the decision. But instead, we can decompose it into, I bought this machine 2 weeks ago. Turns out I really like the fact that the battery is as advertised and lasts a really long time. The screen resolution isn't nearly as good as my friend's Dell, right? And I wish it had 3 more USB ports. Overall, it was a good value. There's a lot of good information if we can listen. So there's social media, e-com, call center. Tens of thousands of calls a day to the call center. User forums. People are talking to each other. Do you have this problem? My wireless adapter right now is not working. That's a true story. I went to a user forum because there are people that are talking about this exact same issue. Surveys. We do 36 different surveys at Lenovo, it turns out. Nobody knew this. Different customer touch points throughout that engagement or the customer journey had different surveys. 36 different surveys. So those are all channels through which we're getting voice of the customer. And we said, wow, there's a lot here. I don't know what to do. Let's focus on one decision. We'll focus on quality. And specifically, what decision and quality? We have a critical situation team at Lenovo. Critical situation team basically comes in every day and hopes to find, well, they don't really hope to find it, but if it's there, they hope to find it, pervasive quality issues impacting lots and lots of users throughout the world. And they are really set up to quickly solve the problem. Get the component out of the supply chain, get the finished goods inventory with that component out, send fixes to users. It's a process that lives and exists today. The decision they have to make each day is, where do we look? How do we know what's a pervasive quality issue? And the current process, or at least at this point, had been, we look at warranty claims. Does anyone else do this? They look at warranty claims to figure out quality. A lot of people, I know, a lot of companies do this. What's the problem with that? Pretty late, right? Some company services the machine. It takes weeks to get all that done. There's some kind of financial accounting stuff that happens, warranty claims trickle through a system, and months later, we recognize there's a problem and we go fix it. And actually, once we know, we fix it very, very, very efficiently. We thought we could affect the decision if we brought all this data together, we text mine for something specific. We didn't throw all the data we had and say, magic mirror on the wall, tell me what the data says. We said, aggregate these issues by symptom and map symptoms to components and components to products. And then that's structured data, isn't it? And what happens when you have structured data and a bunch of data scientists? Right? I mean, it's a party, right? They go crazy. And in this case, the lesson is text mining and sentiment analysis is not the end of the story. It's the beginning. It's the way to structure data to then be used in the same way we'd use all of our other data. Combine it with operational data, right? Combine it with other things we know about quality. And what we were able to do was create a control chart, right? We're supply chain people, manufacturing. We love control charts. We applied statistical process control to this voice of customer data and decided, wow, the G580 keyboard, out of norm, right? We've gone up 3 straight days in terms of the buzz or the negative discussion about it. And not just I like the keyboard or I don't like the keyboard. Related to quality of that keyboard. A symptom. It's out of control. And we've been able now to detect pervasive quality issues months before we would have beforehand, right, or otherwise. So we started to implement that, and people started to get the hint. Wow. So this thing's not just about tell me everything I could ever need to know from the data. It's about asking specific questions that the answer to those questions could in fact support or change a decision. Right? Throughout the value chain, we are now able to infuse this voice of customer data into many decisions. We look at our value chain starting at design, source, make, deliver, service, right? Across all of those categories, we are impacting decisions, right? It's easy in design. We can all imagine that. What do decision makers in product development use? There's an analysis that they're used to. It's called conjoint, right? Most of us have heard of conjoint. Some of us have used conjoint. We're doing a conjoint analysis with voice of customer data to complement their primary research. We ignore the I love Ashton comments. We ignore the I have a quality issue. We focus on I really wish this had 3 more USB ports. Or the battery is good, I wish it were even better and spec this way. People give us good detailed information. What about sourcing? My screen's not as bright as my friend's Dell. Hey, we know who we source from and who that machine gets their screen from. Right? And oh, by the way, you know what else we learned about screens and product design? One of the KPIs we needed to put against our partners in screens was easy to clean. We always measured what? Size, pixelation, view angle. Turns out a lot of people talk about easy to clean. So now sourcing has changed because the decision they always had to make was, what are the dimensions over which I assess a supplier of component screen? Well, the new assessment includes easy to clean. We impacted that part of the value chain. Support. What do we tell our agents every Monday morning when they come in? Right? They all have a brief every Monday morning. What are the hot issues, the new products, things people have been calling about? We now know, right? We give our agents better information to start the week or the day. We alert them to hot things, not just what they'll call about, but what the right answer is. Call satisfaction goes up. one of my favorites, think about the supply chain, right? That's why we're here. Order to delivery, perfect order fulfillment. Do these really correlate to customer satisfaction in fulfillment? This time, forget quality, forget design. Let's just focus on people talking about fulfillment, right? Yes, you made your promise date, but you promised me 4 different dates through 4 different emails. That happens, right, to all of us. So asking the right questions, measuring different KPIs, it's not just perfect order fulfillment or on time in full. It's what is my customer saying? And can I correlate satisfaction and fulfillment to specific products, to specific supply chains, carriers? Right? Now I can make better decisions there. So as you can see, across the entire value chain now, because we're focusing on the decision, we've been able to bring this unstructured data together and I think make a really big impact. And we're still scrappy about it. I don't think we've solved the problem of tell me everything. But this is a great starting point. So thank you.
So we're going to do some questions now, but I'd like you to tell the group a little bit about your scrappy journey. How long you've been doing this? What's the frequency in which this data is reviewed?
Well, we've been doing this for 2 years. In fact, we probably didn't even get started until a couple months after I started at Lenovo. But the question, Laura, of how frequently do we do this? Well, the answer is it depends on what decision we're trying to impact. The quality guys need new data every day. Every day matters.
Mm-hmm. So it's role-based?
Yeah, it's absolutely. Because, first of all, it's not one application. Everybody has their own application that uses this common capability that we're calling our voice of customer analytics capability. So one capability driving multiple applications that are customized for specific decision makers.
Now, you've worked in the technology environment, and one of the things we talked about when we were prepping is future 2025 and unstructured data. What would you tell the technologists in the room? What do you need?
We need simplicity in the short run, right? We need clearer messaging. We need stronger focus, right? We need to not cause us practitioners pain by putting the message out there that says, just throw everything in this big machine and it'll tell you everything you need to know. I believe there are possibilities there. I'm a trained mathematician. I do believe in that. And I just think not every vendor has learned how to focus their value proposition in a way that is manageable for us large companies. So that's what we need.
But our technologies have all been focused on structured. And I loved your quote, we get structured data and a data scientist and we have a party, right? How do we have a party in unstructured world, right?
Yeah, well, one of the reasons is the data scientists that we all have on staff, they don't know how to do text mining and NLP.
Exactly.
Right? That's a difference in skill set. Can they learn? I would say absolutely. The software that's available to help you is pretty good and pretty easy. Do they want to learn?
Well,
probably not, right?
But how do we get them there?
Okay, so this is something I believe passionately in. We all talk about this labor shortage when it comes to data scientists, right? We've all heard about this. Supposedly we can't hire enough good people in data sciences. I think when it comes to unstructured now, we need to look in a whole different place. We're hiring people in humanities, from humanities degrees and departments. Right? I spoke with a analytics lead in Australia doing this stuff. She hires journalists, investigators.
History majors.
Yeah, history majors.
Okay.
So we can get over some of this problem by looking in different places. Storytellers, investigators are what we need.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What questions do we have? Unstructured text mining.
Oh, scared them.
Yeah, okay, Andrea. I think we know who you are now.
Hi.
So.
Just a question. You were talking about the intersection of decision making and embedding the analytics to drive a mechanism for change.
Yeah.
Can you talk about how you do that?
Yeah.
What the journey looked like for you?
Yeah, when we started, and this is a lesson I feel like I learned prior to coming to Lenovo, but there's pressure to build what I call sexy, beautiful dashboards, right? SBDs. okay?
SBDs, that sounds kind of like,
Exactly.
sexual, yeah, exactly.
It's a bad thing.
Okay, it's SBDs, we have a lot of them,
Yeah,
don't we?
we do. And people think doing analytics means getting another SBD, sexy, beautiful dashboard. But what we've learned, Laura and Andrea, is it's not about just showing you information on something that looks good. So one of our best analytics is embedded in an Excel spreadsheet that a user opens every day. A GSM, a global supply chain manager, opens the spreadsheet every day, has been doing this for 18 years, probably 25 years. How did we impact the decision and drive business value? We didn't try to make them adopt some whole new thing. But now, instead of them putting the right answer in cell C17, they press a button. And all the data gets piped out to a cloud. We run the analytics. We pipe back in a recommendation in C18. We say, here's what we would do. And if you want to know why, click this button, which will open up 3 other windows that show them things. But at the end of the day, they're right back at home. And what's home? That Excel spreadsheet. And so our view is sexy, beautiful dashboards don't work every time for every analytic. And the key here is, who is the decision maker? How do they make this decision? And how do we integrate analytics into the existing process? Right? If we have to go change all of S&OP to do an analytic, we're in trouble.
But how do we get the translators, right? So we get, eye candy, right? We have these sexy objects, right? The SBDs, right? But it's really the translators at the business value level. How do we get the people that can go from the world of the data scientist to the world of business to translate into business value?
Well, part of it, I think, is the analytics communities are lazy in not closing that gap themselves.
Okay.
So what do I mean? You don't have to know anything about the news vendor formulation for optimal safety stock, right? But if we give you the right answer in the right way, you could come to believe it and use it. So the first part of the answer is analytics are we're just too lazy. We want to just crunch it in some crazy looking bad environment and then push out some black and white piece of paper that's hard to read, or it's a sexy, beautiful dashboard, which is great, but completely independent from the system I'm using to make decisions over here. So connecting these are really the goal. But as far as people, again, are we looking in the right places?
Well, and I think you made a really great point in the beginning. You made a lot of good points.
Thank you.
When you talked about your executive that threw down the Harvard Business Review,
Yeah.
and we've got a lot of consultants out
Yeah.
there running around with the big data term, right?
Yeah,
and, and the expectations are way ahead of what we're able to do, right?
That's right.
How do we calibrate as leaders to really lead from the inflection point to value?
Well, I think one way is to demand, very immediate contribution. And I'm careful not to say value because that typically means show me some financial KPI or something. We may not yet be able to value if we could do that plant in Dallas and provide customization, right? We may not be able to value that yet, but that could be a big win. So my point of view is in delivering analytics, there needs to be very, very, very short periodic milestones. These things should never be 1-2 year projects. We're talking about show value, I said it, show benefit, contribution in 6-week increments. And I think that forces you to focus on something and not try to boil the ocean.
I actually heard somebody in 3-week increments, but really short.
Yeah, 6 weeks is our goal. We have a pipeline of 20 projects probably related to VOC now that people get it. And each of those, we put a 6-week timeline on them. It's not that we couldn't spend more time on all of them, we would, but we'll do the best we can in 6 weeks. And we think slowly but surely we're contributing to all these areas in the value chain.
And where do you report? Are you in a business role or an IT role?
When I started, I reported to our CEO's chief of staff, right? And the goal was he knows what he really wants, and the chief of staff's the guy who, tells everyone what to do. So I reported to him. Since then, I now report into the CTO.
Okay, all right. Yeah. And any preference there about what that org looks like?
Yeah, I think being in CTO for us is R&D. So just to be very clear, we have a CIO that's separate. R&D is typically used to looking at product development and technology innovation for our customers 3 to 5 years out. That's really in contrast to what we're trying to do, which is drive immediate business benefit.
Yeah.
So I actually think the prior organization was better, and we'll probably be moving back.
Okay, well, orgs do move.
Yeah.
Other questions for, yep, okay, good. Rick?
Hi, Rick Sather at Jack Links. My question, I think, gets to where you were ended up earlier about VOC. So I'm thinking about this understanding of what decisions do I make, and what you've done to engage the users, the decision makers in thinking differently about what questions to ask, and at what point can you get to where you have more pull than you have capacity to support?
So we're there today. But from day one, we've always tried to be a pool group. Like, I really frown upon the notion of an analytics team pushing their ideas, because it'll never be adopted. You have to be pooled, and you have to get engagement early, right? With not only an executive stakeholder, but what we call the organic champion, the person making the decision. If they're not on board, trust me, it's very easy for them to say to their executive way up there, you know, even if the executive wants it to happen, they'll say, why aren't you using this? Oh, it doesn't work. Good luck, analytics guy. You will lose that fight every single time. So we try to be pool from the beginning. But what do we do in this situation where we don't have the capacity? One, we're looking for partners all the time. But two, frankly, that's why I said we need to keep it to like a 6-week kind of project timeline. That way we can get to more things. And frankly, you know, I used to do some teaching, and I would give my students, I taught math, I would give my students a problem set. Remember all those good problem sets? If I made it due next Thursday, they all turned it in that Thursday morning. If I made the project due next Tuesday instead, they'd be just as good, and they'd all be in on Tuesday. I think one of our enemies is not confining these projects, and especially with data scientists that love to go off the reservation for weeks at a time.
Yep.
And they lose focus.
Those transactional parties.
That's right.
Yeah.
Good enough is a big important theme. Again, being a mathematician, I like optimized, but good enough is a really important step.
But that's an important tension, because they want perfect.
The data scientists do. The business stakeholders don't.
I know, then that's tension. Okay, question here? Yep. Regina, just move the mic. Hi.
Hi, it's Maeve Magner. So Lenovo is a global company,
Yes.
but consumers all over the world are very different.
Yes.
And I noticed on your chart how consumers engage and provide feedback is very different.
That's right.
Question I have, though, is especially as you kind of start to centralize analytics in that, how do you filter for cultural differences?
Those are great questions. So first of all of our natural language processing is happening in its native language. We're not translating everything to English and then doing it, which means we're counting on local help. So we just got done implementing Japanese now, okay? We have English, Chinese, Spanish, most of Russian, but we finished Japanese. We really have engaged a team of local people. I won't call them analytics people. I won't call them NLP experts. They are just people who know the industry and the business and can help us understand. In fact, they do a lot of the work. We've told them how to do this. They spend a lot of time. We test, validate everything. So first of all, NLP, that's N, natural language. That's important. Second of all, we have started to take into account the fact that culturally, some groups are much more willing to say bad things than others. So it turns out in a region like Argentina, where we're doing very well, you'd never know from the feedback. It is so dynamic.
Passionate, eh?
A lot of passion, apparently, right? Good or bad. We love it, we hate it. Right? We do sentiment on a negative 10 to 10 scale. Right? It's amazing the variance in our feedback. Okay? In China, where we have probably our highest volume of feedback, it's much more stable and generally more positive. And we look at our competitors too, by the way, and so are they. So I doubt it's really our brand that they like better, though that might be a part of it. It seems clear to us that culturally speaking, they're less willing to say bad things publicly.
So I hear mine the data and the
Yes.
language it is in.
Yes.
Have people that are natively speaking
Yes.
to work there.
Yes.
And then be able to look at the cultural differences
Yeah.
against competitors.
Right. And you have to be able to look at things distinctly market to market rather than aggregate it all together all the time. There's value in aggregating it for something like quality, right? But if you want to use it for product design, well, you have to be careful who you're listening to.
Okay. Other questions? We have time for one more question. Trevor, do you have a question? You're not going to ask about NLP
No.
SPDs, are you?
No. First of all, love the talk.
Thank you.
Really interesting. What I'm fascinated by is the linear versus nonlinear thinking, because I think a lot of this is about the nonlinear thinking. And yet, as engineers and supply chain people, we taught to think linearly.
Yeah.
So where do you find that talent? You said social sciences and all of this sort of stuff, but they don't have the mathematics. So how do you kind of bring those two worlds together?
Well, first of all, keep in mind, we do have the mathematics on our team already. So as I said, the first part of this, the NLP part, the sentiment analysis, text mining, that's to structure data. Wait, we always, again, I'll say it one more time, that's not the end, that's the beginning. And that's really the only, as you called it, nonlinear piece. And what you mean, it's a lot different than what we've been doing. But once we have the data, now it is what we've been doing. Can we correlate, right, operational KPIs to these customer KPIs? Can we find drivers? Think about those words, drivers, correlation. Those are familiar data mine things. Optimize training. Optimize, right? Optimize price, given what people are saying about the value they're getting. We know how to do that if we could just structure the data. So we don't need everybody to make this step change. We need some group to handle that front piece, and now suddenly we've gotten a lot better.
Well, it's a great discussion.
Good.
Will you be at the reception tonight?
Yes.
So if
Thank
you
you for
want to
having me.
talk NLP and you want to talk SDBs, look for Anthony. We'll be in the Orchid Garden. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye now.